Hi, I'm James and welcome to a double review today. We're going to look at two boxes of Epic Encounters by SFG. Now they're marked as everything you need for an encounter for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, but they are for any system, although the stats are of 5th edition. So we'll come back to that one in a second. We'll start with the Hawk of the the Hall of the Orc King. Now this one, just to give you an idea, is currently selling on Amazon for $34.27. Is a bit of an offer. It's normally $39.99. So what do you get in that box? Because that is quite a big box. We're talking something the size of the starter or the essentials kit. So let's have a look. Nice tight fitting boxes. Put that one out of the way. No doubt the cat will have a look at that. So the first thing we've got, let's shift that out of the way as well, so set this up, is we've got a double-sided map. Decent size, A2 I believe. We've got a hall, quite a nice level of detail in that we've got some nice little things. We've got thrones, we've got a gladiator pit, we've got a great big cauldron bubbling away, we've got a long table. So it's quite a nice little encounter. And then we have the other side, a bit more of a wilderness, and what you have are sort of three areas leading into what looks like an entrance there. So double-sided map, that's quite nice. It's quite durable, feels like it's coated. We've got an encounter book, and then we've got some figures. Now the figures are the main part of the set. There's quite a few figures in the set. I'll actually show close-ups of them on screen and talk about them as well. There's 6 Grimfang Orcs, 3 of which we've got bows, 3 of which have got spears. There's 2 gladiators with 2 one-handed weapons, 2 Orogs, a shaman, 2 grog masters with something I really wouldn't like to drink, 2 cooks, cooking things I definitely wouldn't want to eat, and a king. And then my personal favourites, these. The orc mounted on a polar bear. I mean, how neat is that as a figure? Put that a bit closer so you can see it. I mean, that is beautiful. An armoured polar bear with an orc on top of it. That is an encounter in itself, isn't it? So you get quite a few figures there. I'm just doing the quick count up. 10, 14, 16, 20 figures altogether. So you're talking not a lot per figures. Even if you just bought this for the figures, that works out as quite a deal. And there are lots of nice touches. I mean, the king looks straight out of World of Warcraft to me. Really nice cloak, armoured shoulder pads, the warhammer and the long beard. That works nicely. I like the contrast to the shaman, who isn't quite so well off. We've got a patchy cloak, we've got the skull in the hand, dagger held in a very strange position, but that's a really useful figure. I mean, if you think of those as personality figures, personality figures are where you often have to spend the money. They are quite nice, and something I was looking at when I was having a really good look at the gladiator is, I think, because the jaw line doesn't really show the tusks on that one, you could even use that for a Conan type figure with the hood up. So quite a nice bit of potential with those figures. And then we've got the booklet that comes with it. Let's have a look through the booklet. Nice artwork. Gives why your characters are there. The weather, now that's a useful little touch. You could fit this quite nicely into Fandalin because you've got snow-covered peaks. That ties in nicely. It would fit in absolutely perfectly into Rime of the Frost Maiden. There's a nice little bit about the weather which affects certain things. Then you come to the actual scenario. And this, unfortunately, I think is the weakest part of the book. You have this map, and the setup is you have 3 orcs on polar bears in this part here. Now, doing a quick calculation on that, Polar Bear's a CR2, Orc is, we confirm it, Grimfang Orc is CR a half, so you're actually talking a CR of 7.5. That's a lot. The book does suggest that you can modify the scenario for different levels by changing the saving throw requirements and the damage level, but the damage level only affects things like falling off the cliff. It doesn't affect the monsters, so I don't think the game is anywhere near as scalable as they claim it is. But you can modify it, I suppose. But you've got the problem there is that these two groups then don't pay any notice to what's going on down here. Okay, I can appreciate they may not notice because they're busy hammering out and forging, they could miss it. The ones fishing, on the other hand, I think they would probably hear the sounds of combat. So, bit of a weakness there. It's not ideal, let's phrase it that way. So each of those has got separate encounters. They work out quite well, and then we come to the other side. So the players have got various ways depending on what they find when they get to the other side. There's different ways they can have got in. They could end up coming in straight through the door, and they appear over by on the gantry, over by the cooking pot. If they enter through the main door, well, they're coming in through the main door, and if there's a tiny gap, they can actually end up sneaking in here behind the grog barrels. So that's a stealth approach. The problem is this encounter uses pretty much every miniature in the box. I think it does use every miniature in the box. That's a combined CR of 30. So we've gone from encounters which were like CR 7.5, I think it's 7.5, 3, and something like 4 or 5 to CR of about 30. That's going to give problems. So while I like even the scenario, I think splitting it up, putting it into different areas, use some of your own maps, and then you've actually got a situation where you don't get this problem. The characters are going to be dealing with them a few at a time rather than in a batch. I mean, you could deal with the cooks when they find the kitchens, the brewery part and the cellar. That could be another separate occasion. Probably not have all of them sat at the feasting table, have some of the orcs out and about. The final encounter with the Orc King, the Shaman, and any surviving gladiators is quite nice. I particularly like the fact that the King sits back and lets the fight occur. So that's quite nice. But I think you need to change it a bit. You've got the statistics for the creatures. Nice and straightforward. Nothing exceptional with them, but they are quite nice little ones. Some of them are slightly cartoony, like the and it probably fits them, I suppose. The chef and the head brewers, they do look about right. And the scenario finishes with the ice cracking and the big boss appearing, if you want it to. So that's the first box. The second box, now this is even bigger, the Caverns of the Frost Giant, and it's suggested that this can be a straight follow-on. Now this one's a bit cheaper. Just looking how much this one actually is. This is currently $24.82. Again, a very tight-fitting box. So we have another map. I'll move that out of the way so I can do that. So we've got another one, again, same size, same coating, double-sided, and we have some caverns and some different caverns. We've also got, oops, I've actually punched one of the counters out there, counters for Grimfang Orcs, because these reappear in this, and it gives you 6 archers, 6 spearmen, and you've also got 6 trap tokens. Now the game suggests that you actually put them down on the map. Now let's be realistic for a second. I'm a player and I see this. Which squares do you think I'm going to avoid? and unless you've got players who just are half blind and don't see it, that does cause a bit of an issue. So you've got the counter set. Obviously if you've got the first set, then you can very simply just pull the orcs in instead of using that. You've got the encounter booklet. So again, you've got the bit about scaling, which this one does have a slight difference, which I'll talk about in a minute. Why are the players involved? Rumours, and some nice rumours. I quite like one of the rumours. Frost giants are not born but chipped from the vast glaciers they live among. Once a year the frost giants of a tribe make a ritual journey to the mother glacier and birth their new brothers and sisters. Giants are the spawn of an impossibly ancient magic formed in the dense pack ice and waiting to be discovered. Now that's a campaign seed if I ever saw one. So things that you might find, and this nice little touch is it tries very hard to emphasise the scale. So for example, you've got a cello marked by sprays of blue frost used as a fiddle. Well, that's a nice little thought if you're using those in the game. And this was a nice little one. Bundles of dry sticks awkwardly shaped into dolls and then made to glitter with frost. Religious talismans, toys, magical foci. Nice thought. Tactics, there's a bit on tactics. Encounter aspects, it sort of emphasises about the cold, the lighting, slippery floors, ice in the air. How to actually use the terrain as a GM. There's some nice little touches in there. Then you come to the actual encounters. Now this one's slightly different. It doesn't specify how you're going to actually run this. It only gives you three things, which are let's compare it to this map so we get so we can actually go through the right details. We're on this one. So we've got here icicle drop, where you got the ice that can fall onto the PCs. Crevices. Okay, you've got some crevices here which are difficult for the players to cross, but for the giant they just may just catch his foot. And then tumbling corpses, okay, over in this area here, you can just see them in the ice. So we've got three nice sort of encounters which are repeated. Doesn't tell you where the giant, the orcs or the traps are going to be. What to do, how to expect what the players would do. So it says, what if they attempt a direct assault? What if they try a tactical advantage? What if they try and lure the frost giant out? I quite like that. There's details on the frost giant's attack pattern, special abilities for the frost giant, which is a nice thought. It means that you're not just having every giant the same. Some of these are nicely done, like a Beastmaster where it's got the orcs under its sway. Freeze a jolly good fellow, oh dear, where it actually, the giant grabs a PC and then pours frozen spirit of its heritage into it, and they have to make a constitution saving throw or be paralysed for D3 turns. Very nice thoughts. Sort of extra things that you can actually look at. So it talks about things like collapsing, the frost giant making a massive charge, things like that. What treasure you would expect to find, which is, to be honest, very simple. Either 4, 8 or 12,000 GP and 1, 2 or 3 magical items of the player's choice. Yeah, not really a lot of detail there. Stats for the orcs, and then 3 different versions of the giant. We've got a frost giant calf, which is a challenge rating of 8. Frost giant moraine, which is a challenge of 13. And a glacial frost giant with a challenge rating of 17 with lair abilities and everything. So there's quite a range there, and again we can then go into the credits. But that's what you all want to see, the giant. That's the figure. Absolutely massive. If I put a couple of orcs by it for scale, yeah, it's big. And that's the only figure you get with the set, but then again, what a figure. Comes in 3 pieces. You've got the base, you've got the main body, and it was assembled with the arms attached. I will just remove them so you can see. You will probably have to fill that, I found. It wasn't a particularly brilliant fit. Let's put them back in. I'll just show you what I mean. You can see there, that's going to take a little bit of work just to fill, but look at the level of detail. Every time I look at this, I see something new. You know, I particularly like the sword sticking into the leg there. The improvised armour made up of wolf skin, bits of metal, shields, helmets, everything. It's a beautifully done figure. You know, we've got there, look, we've got a broken sword and 2 skulls held on by a bit of rope. Why, I'm not quite sure. And you've got a whole deer hanging at the side there. So it's nicely done. I like the fact that the improvised armour is all around the lower leg. Not going to be easy to put together, so I'm assuming this is getting ready for war. But that is just an absolutely stunning figure. There is a minor problem, which I realised when I started looking at it, because as you can see it takes up a significant size. So we're actually looking at what? Put that to there, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4 squares. Unfortunately, some of the gaps, like this one here, are only 3 and a bit. So there are some spaces where the giant cannot actually get through his own caverns. I would let him squeeze through them, but it is something to consider that, you know, again, I probably would want a bigger layer running this, so I'm probably going to expand this. I'm going to use I use Incarnate to create some maps. I will create those and then have a bigger dungeon. But it is beautifully done. If nothing else, it will make a cracking display piece. I can just see it with, you know, with the orcs alongside it now, particularly on the polar bears. That is just such a beautiful force. That's a skirmish wargaming army pulled together, isn't it? By the time you've got these 2 boxes. Yeah, they are fairly expensive. Yes, they have flaws, but as a concept they are brilliant, and I do think I'll be picking up some of the other boxes. Not necessarily for the scenarios, which I think don't scale well at all and are incredibly varied in the lethality, but from a point of view of having some brilliant figures, some brilliant scenario ideas, I think this is a really nice idea. So hopefully that's been useful, and I'll see you soon for another review.